So at the moment, when we go from here to here, we're working with a copy of the object that we found. Remember, we found the object and then made a copy of it using that line of code there, object.assign, and ran that method to return the copy of the object. So what we want to do now is to provide the user with the facility in this edit form to actively save the object that they have changed by doing that. So we want that click button, the button, to be in the nav bar. So we'll create that so that we can see what happens and then implement its click to change the data here back into the object from which it was taken. So the appearance of the detail happens in the detail HTML file. So what we need to do is we need to add in the nav bar the code for our button. And it's really easy to do. So what we do is inside our title in the nav bar, we're going to create a buttons group. And we're going to say that it has to sit at the end. Now this is a really useful expression because end in this case, because we're in the UK, end is on the right hand side. But if we were living in a culture where the language was written from right to left, end in their culture would live on the left hand side. So the button group would go to the left hand side. And the machine on which this is running has cultural settings, and the cultural settings pick up end on the side that's correct for that culture. So what we now do is we're going to create a button, which is an ion button. And close that. I'm just going to save it to make sure there's no gross errors there. So that's good. Now we want to qualify our ion button so that we can make it look the way we want it to look. So we're saying that this is going to be an icon dash only. We don't want any text. We just want to have a little image. And it's got a click event, which is going to call something we haven't yet written, which is called onSave. If we try to run this now, everything's going to go a bit Pete Tong, because it'll all think this should be there and it won't find the function and it'll crash. So what we want to do is then define which icon only we're going to use as the interface for the button. So in here we say that the ion dash icon has a name, which is check mark, which is American for a tick. So that saves that. Control S. And there's our check mark, our tick. So that's a button. As you can see, when I hover over it, I get the pointing finger, and I do crash because I haven't written my onSave. So that's what we'll do next. We'll write the onSave and save the object with its new data. So we're calling this onSave method, so it has to be inside detail.ts. So we go underneath here, just make a little bit of space, onSave, and then we create the body for the method. But this method should actually work inside the inquiry service. We manipulate the data inside the services that manage the data, inside the service that manages the data. So what we're going to do is we're going to call a function from the inquiry service that we haven't yet written. This dot inquiry service up update inquiry. This is the one we haven't written. And what inquiry we're going to update? We're going to do this dot inquiry. So we now have to write this update inquiry inside inquiry service so that when it's called, it'll be called from here. I'm inside the inquiry service.ts, so we're going to put our new function, which is the one we mentioned in the previous section, called update inquiry. Can't spell. And it's going to have an inquiry to update of type inquiry, which is managed by our model, as you know, so it's got to fit the bill. So now what we're going to do is similar to this, what we've got here where we get the inquiry. So I've copied this line here, and I'm going to paste that in, but we need to change some of the things. We're going to have a constant called index, which is going to be equal to a different function that's related to our Ionic, Angular and JavaScript library. Find speaking and typing at the same time, where the ID equals inquiry.id. So we've now got the index of the object that we want to update. So what we now do is use the code to update that from the object that's been passed to it. Do is that in the array this dot inquiries at position index that we've just found, we will assign the inquiry to replace it using the one we've just found. So that says give us the index, get its position, that's its position in the array, and in that array at position index replace whatever we had with the one that we've got. So we should now see what we've got to see whether it all works. So I think I need to do a file save all because I think I don't know that I saved the detail page. So there we have it. So let's do that. So I'm going to change Bob's number to 32 and tick, and nothing seems to happen. What we'll do in future development is we'll say that when it's ticked, we go back to the record. So remember, we're looking for the change Bob going to 32. And Bob's number has indeed been changed to 32. So that's really good. That works well. I've just been thinking that while we're in here, we might as well do that return to the home page from where we are. So it'll be in the on save. Now we have a nav control which controls the navigation stack. Remember, we pushed the detail page onto the stack. So what we want to do to go back to the page below, which is the home page in this particular set of circumstances. Now this could get tricky if it wasn't the immediate page below it, but we've only got a 2-page app, so we can just do this dot nav control dot pop, and it doesn't need any parameters. It'll just take our page off the stack and go back to the page below it. So let's just check that. And we go back to the page below it. That's really good.